Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of Live Coding and Chill. I'm your host Johnny and it's gonna be Next.js and Chill today too. We had a very successful live stream on Friday right after the Next.js conf where Next.js 14 was announced and the new free official Next.js Learn course. We went through it, we went 69% through it as it just happened, which was nice, we can all agree. And today we're going to be finishing everything off. Hopefully, that's what I plan to do. We did go through 11 chapters, 1 through 11 last time, and we should be able to go through 12 to 16 and maybe even add a few bonuses at the end. As it happened last time, I'm sure I'll be commenting on the things that I like, the things where the Next.js Learn course overlaps with how I teach full stack development, React, other frameworks, and very often I may say, oh, SvelteKit does this, while React does that, or whatever else, which people have been liking. So I'll keep doing it. I think I was going to do it anyway, but it is always nice to see validation. Let me know in the chat, how's your week going? I hope it's going amazingly well. And we'll get right to it. Maybe with a quick recap, so I'll switch to the full desktop view. We've been building this. The most exciting part of last time, I'd say, is the skeleton UI. So this course is showcasing a lot of the exciting new features of Next.js 14, which doesn't really have much new features over Next.js 13, but still super exciting new React and Next.js features. The most eye-catching one, and probably helpful and useful for performance, is the streaming of components and the streaming UI. You can kind of see the skeleton UI we get when we refresh the page. Here you can see that some of the components come in straight away because they're statically built and they don't fetch any more data, while the other components show that nice glimmering UI that we're used to until they actually get their data and we get to see the actual numbers and avatars and all the correct things that we'll be able to interact with, I'm sure, in this episode, because we start with mutating data. So I guess that we'd be able to go to an invoice and make it paid and that sort of thing. Forms. If you can fetch data, display it nicely and mutate it, you're done. That's what you need as a software engineer. You'll be hired anywhere. And what else will we be doing today? I'm not sure. Authentication for sure, because you may notice that here they have a login page, but it's not actually handled by anything. So I'm sure we're going to be doing that today. You log in and only then you can see the dashboard and submit forms and all that good stuff. And besides going the full course, which I've seen the overview of, but haven't actually done, we may be adding some bonus features that I don't think it has, like analytics. Worth noting that we are going full Vercel on this. So we are deploying this project to Vercel. The database, the Postgres database we're using is managed by Vercel. And the analytics that we're going to use are going to be Vercel analytics as well. So full Vercel for this one. We'll be adding a playwright navigation smoke test, which I don't think is mentioned in the course, but there is a nice point where I would be talking about end-to-end testing. And maybe even SVGs as React components. We'll see why that may be useful, but maybe we'll have more inspirations. Maybe you can suggest what you'd like to see. Let's get on with it though. So we talked about what we're doing today. We went through the overview. You can see the source, open source free, of what I'm doing. Of course, nextjs.org/learn is the course. And I've linked in the description the code that we've been developing together in the previous live stream, and I'm going to push the updates of what we're going to do today. You can also see my website, which is Next.js 14, actual real project, some nice testimonials that I felt touched by, and all that good stuff. Great user experience. I can do a bit more with, the images are optimized, but I could do something more fun with like the blur up or the placeholder, something like that here, but we'll see. Anyway, enough about me. Mutating data. So we've got the code here. Let's see the skeleton UI in the mobile view as well. Still looks quite nice. And this time I assume we're gonna make it to this page that we finished on, where we added a search feature along with a pagination functionality, and be able to mark invoices as paid. I don't think that they definitely do not have payments through Stripe or anything else back then. Evil Rabbit here, just off screen, so I'll open this tab, the inspector. So my face will only be covered in the inspector, which usually we won't be needing. Some nice little Easter eggs in this project as well. Always fun to have fun while you're learning something. But yeah, enough guessing. Let's see what they want us to do. In the previous chapter, we did do the search and pagination using URL search params. I will not go on a tangent straight from the start. There are quite a lot of blog posts regarding storing your state to the URL, and definitely for like pagination functionality, for sure, like 100% just do it. And we'll have the ability to create, update, and delete invoices. Amazing. So the exciting stuff with Next.js 14, which is now stable, is React form actions, server actions. They were experimental in Next.js 13, so I've already used them, but it'd be amazing to see them now that they're stable, and of course to have them be the way to update and do form mutations in React land for everyone. Native form data object, that's another thing where I consider myself in the winning team, where I was preaching for this much before it became cool, which doesn't really matter, so long as you end up in the right team. That's it. There's nothing wrong with changing your opinion or how you do stuff. But I do think trying to base stuff over web standards is the way to go. Validating cache. I said before, cache invalidation, one of the two hardest things in engineering. Dynamic route segments. I imagine we'll do that to see specific invoices. React use form status. That's a thing I'll be very excited to play with. Played with it before to make a custom button, like an agnostic button that no matter the form that you're putting it in, it will show a loading state when the form is submitted. That's a thing, for example, that is easier to do than in SvelteKit. You do need a bit more code to do the same effect in SvelteKit and in previous React projects. I really like how it's done here, even though, of course, the disadvantage, I guess, is that it is more magic. But sometimes magic is good. Right, server actions run synchronous code directly on the server. They eliminate the need to create API endpoints to mutate your data. So usually you'd have like a CRUD style server or an API like that, and a backend that would handle your form submissions. Now you can write the code that you need right in the React component. Groundbreaking. And they do say that they're very secure, I guess because they're doing all the security stuff behind the scenes for us. They can recognize that, oh, this magic method that you want to run in this form, they'll take care of doing all the correct backend stuff to secure that. Only the current user that is seeing this form is able to mutate some data when they hit the server. You do these things with like nonce tokens and that sort of thing, but a lot of frameworks have obfuscated how that is done. They just do it for you behind the scenes, and it's great to see Next.js doing it as well. Server actions deeply integrated with caching. So do they magically know that what the cache should be busted, or should we tell them? I guess we have to tell them with revalidating the path. I imagine if the form is inside the invoices route, I guess they're gonna invalidate all the caches related to the invoices route. but we'll see. What's one benefit of using a server actions? Here we go, like a typo here. What's one benefit of using server actions? Improved SEO, progressive enhancement, faster websites, data encryption. So interesting. I think, I don't even know. It could count as progressive enhancement because even if the user or the browser doesn't support JavaScript, then server actions will work. But is that even considered progressive enhancement? Because every browser runs JavaScript. The user may have disabled JavaScript, but nowadays every possible browser does run JavaScript. Faster websites, that I guess can be done. Data encryption, I don't think it's that one. Improved SEO, I don't think it's that one. I'd say it's either progressive enhancement or faster websites. I will go with progressive enhancement, but I think this is maybe the second one where I'm worried about the answer and we may get something incorrect. We got it correct. Great. Stream can go on. Progressive enhancement. Again, I don't think it counts. Like they can give you progressive enhancement by like doing optimistic updates, but they haven't talked about optimistic updates as of now. I think all the things that they're talking about don't have anything to do about with progressive enhancement. They don't even say that even if you're not using JavaScript, then no, they do say it here. All right, so they do say this: even if JavaScript is disabled on the client, then you can your server form actions are still gonna be working. So that's how they go into the progressive enhancement being the correct choice here. And yeah, it makes sense. Is it really progressive enhancement? Usually progressive enhancement is your website works, and if a browser supports the feature, then it looks nicer. It's enhanced progressively. But yeah, no need to delve deeper into semantics. Let's just use them. So we're going to create an invoice. We want the form to capture the user input, server action to invoke the form, extract the data from the form data object. This is you can do with vanilla JavaScript anywhere. This is exciting. We're going to validate the data, insert the data to the database, I guess, and revalidate the cache. Because without the cache being revalidated, I guess it won't appear here ever again until we do like a manual deployment. All right, they're gonna go CRUD style with the semantics. So in invoices, we need to create a create directory, page.tsx. So we have the invoices route. Create page.tsx. And in there, we'll have the form. Paste it in and then read it. Use the instruction. We have moved things around the way I think makes sense. So let's put everything in a source directory for one, which we immediately go to with the add source. So everything should resolve now. They have a create form component, I guess. They have some breadcrumbs for navigation to go to all invoices, I also guess. And they have a database method that fetches all customers, I also guess. The breadcrumbs are gonna have two things. So yeah, it looks like it gets you back to dashboard invoices, or it gets you to the dashboard invoices create, or it shows, I guess, that you are in that route. So it has the active boolean here being true. And the form has all the customers in the word. Sure. So it's saying navigate there by magic. Yes, we're gonna /create or 4. Did I misspell? Invoices create. must be something obvious that I'm missing here. And of course I've pasted in the wrong directory, in the UI directory. There are quite a few places where I do dislike this choice of having a UI directory, because the benefit of the AMP router with Next.js 13 and 14 is that you can have the UI collocated with your pages, which I think is much handier and prevents problems like this. Oh well. Alright, we're here. All the customers in the world are available. Vanilla native browser input here. Native input. Nothing wrong with that. I love that. But it's one of the first things that a designer would change, like to so that they're worth their money. They'd be like, oh no, this needs to have like a beautiful drop down with the user avatars and all of those things. Like vanilla works great, is native, looks native, so just go with that, and no need to bring in an extra component or library for everything else. Like MVP, release that, then you can make it beautiful. Right, and it has one button. So this form, let's go there. Interestingly, they say it has a button of type submit, which is wrong, because, well, wrong. But a button inside the form is automatically a submit button, so you don't really need to override it if it's not a submit button anymore. And on the other hand, if you have a button that's outside of a form and you want it to be a submit button, then you need to specify. So why are you doing this? You shouldn't do this, no need. They're also using like the rest props, all the props in the world here, which not really an anti-pattern, but not great. They do type this well by extending the native button HTML attributes plus the children prop. So actually this is fine because it knows what the rest props exactly is. So if you see this pattern, if people have warned you against this pattern, it's fine now, because with TypeScript you've typed this extensively, and it's not like people can just pass to your component anything in the world, like, you know, whatever through TypeScript is going to say you shouldn't be passing whatever here, and they won't allow you to do it. And you won't want to like handle everything, every possible prop of the HTML button element. Cool. So we do see the following UI. It's a bit smudged and mobile friendly here. And we'll need to create a server action. Interestingly, I've seen these server actions in, I believe, elsewhere, like in the example before. They have the server action inside the component itself. But here, they want us to create the server action in a different directory. And I don't like that. Again, I want to collocate this at the very least, and it doesn't have to be inside the create form, although it feels like it should, since we have it here. But at the very least, I will collocate the action here to this route, so I will not be confused. People will be able to see, oh, the invoices route, what is possible in there. Then you have the actions file, and you can investigate that as needed. Well, if you have like a general actions file that has every possible action in your app, but it's going to overwhelm people. It's going to have too many actions that you won't need to see, unless you are, the only ones you want to see is the ones that are relevant to you. So if you are the invoices team or you're working on that part of the app, you'll just see the invoices related actions. You don't need to see every action in the world. So let's create the actions.ts and have an explicitly say use server for this one, and have a create invoice action, text form data. I guess that's known from the browser. And we're we're gonna bring it in and pass it in here. So this is one of the moments where I've been using this for a little while, and I do like how Next.js does it versus SvelteKit. They're very similar now. I've mentioned before that Remix kind of inspired SvelteKit, kind of inspired Next.js. They're all the good meta frameworks are inspiring each other. SvelteKit also uses form actions that are progressively enhanced, but you have to specify a server endpoint essentially, or a method in an actions object that you need to have in your page server.js. Doesn't really matter. It does mean that the way Next.js does it, where just in the file you say, I want the action that I want to happen, it's this method. I think that's much clearer, much easier. You don't need to move around the different files. Even me explain how SvelteKit works. If you don't know about it, you may be confused. I get confused sometimes. Here it's clear. This form, what does it do? It's this method. We'll be able to command click and get into this method and figure out what it does easily. So action create invoice, did we say? Don't need to call it. So someone coming into this file, they're like, oh, what does this form do? Create invoice. You can go in here. You can see exactly what it does. Easy. In SvelteKit, I don't know if the IDE, like the plugins, the SvelteKit plugin here, the Svelte plugin is gonna have some magic where you can command press the form action and then see the corresponding handler. But as it is now, like simple, very JavaScript-like, like it. Advanced Next.js on this one. All right, and now from the form data object, we're gonna get, I suppose, the stuff, the inputs that we'll be interested in. So the customer ID will be getting from this input, I suppose. The amount will be getting from here, and the status from here. And I can only assume that they're named customer ID and amount and status, I guess. Indeed. So the form data object is going to have them in those corresponding keys. Name is going to be the key for finding the value. Cool. Let's copy and paste again. Why not? So in here, I'll keep this format. They're telling us to do console log debugging, just for the fun of it. So now if we select Hector, 1, 2, 3, 4 amount and pending, we should see a console log on the backend. That is having that customer ID, amount, and status. Click. Yeah, customer ID, amount, status. All good. All good so far. So what else do they want us to do? I assume that now is the point where we talk to the database, and I assume wrong, because first they want us to validate and prepare the data. They also want the date and stuff. They're saying here all input elements return, not return, return a string, not a number, sure. They have brought in Zod as a library to validate the form data, which I guess would be a reason to have a separate file for this. But again, a reason to not have one file in here, like in lib, that has every possible action of your app, because you'll have a million schemas and a million handlers. So the invoice schema, we need to have an ID. We need to have a, do we need to have an ID? I guess so. So usually you just pass to the database the customer ID, amount, and status for sure, and possibly the date, because that's not the current date, that's the date that the invoice was paid, so maybe not that one. But the ID, you wouldn't pass the server, you'd have your Postgres database create an ID for us. So I'm not sure about that. Ah, I see. So they're saying that an invoice has this schema, and then you're saying that the create invoice specifically, you omit the ID and the date, because indeed when you create the invoice, you omit the ID, you omit the date. You have your Postgres database create those for you. Sure. And I like that. I guess Zod, the validation library, can also say you can have this queries option where you can give it a string and then it will queries it, it will parse it into a number if you've said that this field should be a number. So if we do that, then we'll find that this amount will actually be a number. And if we weren't passing all of these, then I assume it would be throwing an error. Since it says it's TypeScript based, I'd imagine that even this one should be failing, but I'm not sure why it's not. Pro tip here in the database, store your values in cents, because dividing things in programming languages is hard. So put stuff in cents and you don't have to worry about it usually. That's also a bit weird, because the amount, like, you have to know that this is in cents in your database. All right, here they're creating the date themselves, which doesn't make sense to me, because I would want the database to create the date for us. But let's follow along for now. Oof, I'm gonna do like a row insert here. Interesting. If we look at our seeding script, so you can see that the ID does default to UUID generated before, but indeed the date does not default to now. I think that's a method that should exist, which probably it should. But in any case, it does mean that we do need this. Let's write some row SQL and feel dangerous. Oof. Potential for dependency, not dependency, for SQL injection as well, since we're just passing the row values here, no prepare statements or nothing. That's very naughty. Because customer ID is just a string, it's not even a UUID. But I guess I can't directly do it. I may try it at the end of the episode. Like, if the value of this if the value of Amy Burns is drop table customers, will that delete the customer table? I don't know. I think it will. We'll find out. Because the first statement will error and this one should succeed. We'll see. Revalidate path, they're saying here. And I assume this means any data fetching we've done for dashboard invoices, after this is done, you should revalidate it, you should bust the cache. Is it just dashboard invoices or every path underneath? That's something that we'll probably have a look at later. And then we go back to the invoices page with all the invoices. As I said before, I do think we're going to go through all the chapters today and finish this course. The rogue element is my puppy, who is now snoring, sleeping peacefully. Good news. But she will wake up at some point. Let's see how excited she's going to be. Let's see if this works. What's the lead one? Maybe this. Let's create it. There you go. Lead amount succeeded. Let's try the thing I was talking about. So customer Amy Burns. Let's do like 666 for the fun of it. And then make the value be table invoices. Have fun. All right. So thankfully, it seems that either the SQL library, this SQL library is guarding against this. I was thinking that a semicolon would end this this statement, or maybe it's just the way they're using values here. Anyway, my anti-SQL injection skills aren't up to par nowadays. I just have to remember what was done before because I always use ORMs and other stuff to safeguard against this. Anyway, nice to see that we can't get hacksorted. Creating an invoice, great, and we cannot get hacksorted. Amazing. Updating the invoice. We also need the invoice ID. So we'll need a dynamic route segment here. Which I thought we talked about earlier. But let's create it. So not on the UI folder this time. We want invoices ID magic directory, brackets, makes Next.js capture that parameter, edit page tsx. ID edit page tsx. Want to find the table component for invoices, and there is an update button here. which does pass the invoice ID, sure, but it doesn't pass it into the href, interestingly enough. And it's saying to pass it like this, which could be handy enough. There is an object syntax as well for link components, but when the thing you want to inject is like part of the URL, I prefer just passing in the string like this. Indeed. Then we go to our new page component, edit page, has nothing, now it has everything, and we need to correctly target the components. And we need to get the invoice ID from the route params. So sadly, Next.js SvelteKit is amazing in this. It will auto-generate the types. It will auto-generate what params you actually have in this route. We have to type it ourselves. So it's and the ID, we get it out from the params. And then in this component, we're going to be getting the customers and the invoice for the specific ID. I guess the customers again for the dropdown, and a new method just for this invoice. And this form doesn't like the invoice, interesting. Interesting. So this form thinks that the invoice is invoice form. What does that mean? Don't really know. And the invoice we get may be undefined, right? So does it say anything about not found? No. By heart, I do think that this we can use the not found method that gets us to the 404 page. So if we manage to go to an invoice that doesn't exist, we cannot find it, then we actually go to a 404 page. And now the form component is happy because this is always defined. This is always a valid invoice. All right, so back to all the invoices. We can click the pencil and we do go to the detail. And if we mess up like this URL, then we should go to our 404 not found. Great. Without the not found thing, we'd be crashing here. Here I am. Nice to see you here. I really enjoyed your comment on the previous live stream, and yes, the answer is I'm live now. Nice that you made it. So indeed, on every invoice, we can see that the parameters are correct. We fetch the correct invoice, correct customer, the correct status, all good. Can actually click on the breadcrumbs to go back. It's all looking good. With an ID as follow. There should be like an S pass on the docs, and add some extra S's, remove some unnecessary S's. from the docs. But as we said last time, there are like 50 million issues in the Next.js and the Vercel repos. These geniuses making these projects, they are doing so much work, and even managing the issues, triaging is a ton of work. They're talking about UIDs versus auto-incrementing keys. Back in my day, we didn't have v4 UIDs. We just have an integer that went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that's usually bad now because it's another security, another surface, another security vector that you can get attacked. You may be leaking information. If it's 154, then a malicious party knows that, oh, there is like 154 invoices. Like, what's 153? Let's check that one out. So usually it's better to do UUID. On the other hand, some performance things, it's easier to index things when they are integers than they are UUIDs, but not necessarily. Anyway, unnecessary tangent. Let's move on. So they're talking about an update invoice form action, but that doesn't exist. Does it? It doesn't. Yeah, we haven't created this. We need to create this. It is in this section, but it's just the wrong way around, I guess. They're saying do this, but you can't actually do this because that would call the method. And it's saying you can bind the first parameter, do a bit of factory here, or carrying, you might want to say. But anyway, the point is, go to our actions file. It is another invoice action, so it is going to be the same file. And they want us to have a type for the update invoice schema, which only has the ID being omitted, the date being omitted, the ID we do need. The first parameter should be ID because we're going to be binding the ID depending on the view we're in. So that's a cool trick. The SQL seems to be safe again. Iron in the chat asks, what do I do? Do you mean what I'm doing now? In general, I'm a principal software engineer, and usually big companies have me work on Next.js apps nowadays, or to replatform to a Next.js app. But sometimes I do use SvelteKit as the meta framework of choice as well, and most often in my own projects I use SvelteKit quite a lot. And Next.js App Router is definitely the way to go for new projects. A lot of companies are having a bit of trouble slowly migrating from the Pages router to the app router. But it's exciting because I like the approach that Next.js team has now with the app router, much more than the Pages router. If that wasn't the answer to your question, please clarify and I'll be happy to answer. What we're doing now is kind of the same thing as what we're doing in the create form. So if we save that and we go to our edit form, we can pass the action that we want, the update invoice action, and they're saying you cannot call this method here because calling it will actually call it and try to update this, but that's not what we want. We want to essentially create a new method, and we want to bind the invoice ID to it. let me clarify or validate that that's what they want me to do. Oh, now first you pass the context. I haven't done I haven't done binding in so long. So first you pass in the context, an extra context, I guess, and then you pass in the first parameter. Hello, Nesha. Nice to see you in this chat as well. Nesha Prashath. I'm trying my best to pronounce your handle name correctly. I hope I did a decent job. So we have the update invoice method. I think this may trip people up, so I'll go back into it. We have this update invoice method that needs an ID and a form data object. It seems that in Next.js, what you pass in as form actions, they always just take the form data. So you need to create a new method which does not take the ID and just accepts the form data as the first argument. The way we can do that, if you already have an update invoice method, is bind the first parameter to something. So now we are binding, this is the context, forget about this, we're binding the first parameter to the ID of the current invoice. Another way to do this without using bind and stuff, or if you're more into Java, we're not going to do this, but just a way to do it. You can also use a fat arrow method. Would be to have a method that returns a method. So you'd have an update invoice factory and you'd be passing in the ID, and then what you get back is a method that takes form data and always uses the ID that you've bound in a different way here. So that's the way I would do it, to be honest, with a method factory, because then but anyway, since the Next.js Learn course is doing it with bind, this may become more standard, so let's go with it. So question from Arya. Aryan likes the apparatus layouts and routing, but still not comfortable with RSC. Can I just copy all my pages router code? So the old way Next.js was doing stuff with the pages router. Can you copy all the pages and use client and then it just works? I'm not sure. Try it. The problem is that you'll need to do some refactoring for the file names as well, because there are other conventions in the app router than the pages router. But I do think that that can get you far. I think there is quite a lot of overlap of how pages router used to work and how app router now works. So go for it and let me know. I don't think it's going to be a lot of work. All right, so enough talking about how update invoice binding works. Let's see if it actually works. We're in the edit invoice. Let's say that this is 349 instead of 35 something. Press edit. We messed it up. Runtime error even. Interesting. Oh, the thing that they wanted us to paste doesn't have ID in it. So let's get this out. Let's put this in. Where ID equals ID is used here. No, it's not. So what's the problem? So the update invoice schema is this, and we're passing the ID here. Did they change this at some point? Let's have a look. Parse. Yeah, they don't show us how we can update this, but I can only assume that they want us to check that this works. I guess there are two ways to do it. You can still have this be omit the ID, but I think what they want us to do is this. So maybe we can do like an updated invoice. Which is gonna be this. I don't like it. Take it back. This kind of confirms that we have all the elements in place. So now, if we make this be 3, 4, 2, 1, 0, let's press edit invoice. Interesting. The amount should be 77 always. Oh well, I'm sure they didn't mean that. There must be something weird with the step value of this. So the 89 one becomes 88. Cool. The 88 one becomes pending. Kinda cool. The 89 one becomes pending, and we press to edit it. And it is indeed pending. The 89 one becomes 88. So that didn't update. Interesting. We're not getting any weird new invoices either. So this one, I want to, it also doesn't update correctly to the pending status that it had in the previous view. So I need to hard refresh. So there must be something funky here. Maybe with a local server. So I can make this one to Delva 88 in paid. And it doesn't update in the UI. Not all the fields. Interesting. Does update the page status. That one works, but it seems the value doesn't quite work. Wonder why. Bigger Saints, let's see if that does anything. That does do something. But then it has the previous value cast, and I have to hard refresh to go back to 75. Interesting. And we are doing the revalidate path here, but I guess it doesn't revalidate the /ID paths, doesn't update the nested paths. Can only guess. Let's do the delete invoice too. We're gonna do the magic this time. Not in a separate route, but in a button. So let's go back to the actions file, and they want us to paste in this. They want us to paste in the delete invoice thing, actually. Just takes in an ID, it should be a string, then it just deletes it and revalidates this path. There are no handy docs here about whether it revalidates some paths. Oh well. we need to go to the delete invoice button. Hey Roses, what's up? All good on our side. What's good with you? We don't need to call redirect. It says, because we're already on the correct table, so I guess they want us to update this button, which is in the delete invoice component. Is that a real thing? Guess not. UI invoices button. They claim that it's there. UI invoices buttons. This one. Alright, so it gets given the ID but does nothing with it. And what they want to do... Oh, they do it in a different style here. They want us to wrap this in a form. This button. They want us to give this form an action. It's gonna be the delete invoice action, and we want to bind the ID. Null is the context, ID is the thing we want to buy. So now the Del Oliveira one, if I press the trash can here, should be deleted. And indeed looks like it is. Magically updates immediately. And I think that's the end of the chapter. So I can go to the chat. We're working through the brand new and free official Next.js 14 course. In the previous live stream, we went through the first 11 chapters. We're going through an exciting one with server actions, chapter 12 here. And we have this dashboard where we just made it so you click the trash can icon, that invoice disappears. You can also press the pencil icon, go in here and update the amount and the paid status here, but that looks like a bit finicky. I'm not sure about that one. And when we can also create an invoice, we can create an invoice to Lee Robinson and tell them they need to pay us an amount because we've been debugging this for free. And it does get created immediately. And this seems to be sorted by latest date. I guess the SQL query takes care of that. All good. So Ariane asks, thoughts on the course? I do like it for sure. There are some parts where I differ in my learning style. I definitely encourage more hands-on typing than has been in this course. There's been a lot of copy-paste, which is more exciting because you copy a fully styled component and then you paste it in and you uncomment this code and everything works. But I do think the best way to learn is when you have to type things out for yourself. There's actually been a decent amount of typing things in this chapter, but still not enough. Like mostly we needed to copy the things from here. They have the handy copy button. I like the theory that they have for sure, talking about core web vitals and why image optimization and font optimization and all sorts of stuff is good while we're doing streaming, when you might not want to do streaming. I think the theory part is excellent, but I would be a bit more of a stickler with having the people going through having to type out things a bit more. If you type out things, then I guess you're more likely to make a mistake, but you're also more likely to understand where you've made the mistake, even if you need to spend time debugging afterwards. So there is something going on with the casting the specific invoices path, but it seems like we won't get to it in this chapter. Oh well. In any case, chapter 12, mutating data works. I don't want to spend too much time debugging this because maybe the next one, handling errors, also says, we've planted this mistake in there, so you'll be more likely to commit it to memory. Who knows? So I will take a sip of coffee. I will set up a poll and read the vibes of the room. Like, will we manage to go through it? We've just done 12 out of 16 chapters. My puppy is happily sleeping still. So the question is, will we finish the course today? Taking breaks helps me ramble less. All right, next up, handling errors. In the previous chapter, you've made some errors. I believe too. So we've learned how to mutate data, and now that people can mutate stuff left and right, let's see how you can handle errors gracefully using try-catch. Interesting. Special error component to catch sub errors, I guess. Not found, which we've preemptively used it. Whoops, spoiler alert. So they want us to try catch in the block, but I'm not sure what the benefit is. Like, what does graceful mean? Maybe graceful is having the appropriate UI being rendered. So I'm not sure. Stream setup. This is a Rode mic. It's the podcaster mic that has a USB port. Goes into my Mac Studio. The camera, I used to use this one actually, and I still use it for my edited videos, but now it's just the iPhone camera, iPhone 14 Pro Max camera. I think it looks better for the streams. This fancy camera with a huge lens looks better for after you've done things in Final Cut or your editing software. And thanks for the compliment. For sure. It's mostly lighting. So, graceful handling of errors, whatever that means. Let's say that if the SQL fails, then we should have an error in the Vercel logs saying that. And I don't know what to return. It should return a server error. I don't know. Like, would it be like return new response 500? Something went wrong. So I'm not actually sure. GitHub Copilot is helping here. We're updating invoice this. Let's console this message and the error. And to the user, just send the message and an error code of 500. I don't know if that will actually do something. I don't know if you're supposed to return responses on server actions, but it feels correct. It feels like what we should be doing. So the update action is gracefully handled by this. Let's try this other one. Error. Error, create an invoice for customer this. Sure. And for the delete, let's do a similar thing. Try. Then that's error deleting this invoice. And the reason I'm not try catching this stuff, I feel like if this fails, we should throw like a 400 response. We should be sending something else back. where we say there's been an error. I do think the way this works is maybe we can return like, maybe they want us to try catch this and return an error object, but I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. So like us, they are only try catching the SQL, like the server errors, and they're not doing the other Next.js stuff, which is kind of interesting. So they're strictly try catching the database statements. Interesting. And they're also not doing our return of responses. But they are returning a message. Great. Like this. Sure. So let's return message. I would return error because message can be good, to be honest, even though I also named it message. There's also this part where I can only assume that parsing this fails, but if you don't have a customer ID or amount, but I don't know, not sure. So just return a message. Great. Redirect does work by throwing an error like it does with SvelteKit. So we actually do need to have it outside the catch block. And let's create a brand new error. And when we press this button, it will error out and we get to this, but I guess they'll have us do some nice UI. So error TSX, new thing, handling all errors with the closest error TSX. Again, we need to paste quite a lot. Error TSX, so another magic magic Next.js file. Actions file, not actually magic. Once again, I put it in the wrong directory. There should only be one directory. So let's drag that in the invoice directory. Kinda cool. So invoices, error TSX, page TSX, also a magic file. And they want us to copy all of this, paste in here. And then we have that error that we're always throwing, and we get this screen. And it's quite fun that the rest of the UI, the rest of the app is not broken, and we can just press this button to re-render the same view. Quite nice. So none of this is going to attempt to re-delete this because we don't have like custom logic for this. But I think that's nice. That's like strictly better UI. And apparently this special error TSX magically gets an error, and this reset function that re-renders the UI, I can only imagine this is Next.js magic. This I've seen with React error boundaries before, a component that gets fed the error. This reset must be custom for Next.js. Can only assume. Error TSX needs to be a client component. All right. So the error we throw, we'll find it here. And this one is a magic error to reset the error boundary. Did that exist in error boundaries before? I'm making it up. Error boundary. they're using a library called error boundary. But they're not wrapping the error boundary. Okay, tangent. I don't really know what the error boundary gets fed. I know that it gets fed the error that happened, but does it get fed a reset functionality? Maybe. We may know later. For errors, we did this. Fetch invoice by ID. And this returns nothing. We did this before because TypeScript was complaining. So let's see what happens if we go to this invoice. It's all well and dandy. If we go to one that doesn't exist, something went wrong, which is an error, which feels incorrect. It's because this wasn't realistic enough as an ID. Interesting. It seems like 404s get handled by the error page now that we have one, while without it, we call this like not error. And we try to go there, we go to the 404 page, the vanilla default Next.js 404 page. But if you have an error component, then the 404 page becomes the error component. Actually renders this. But what we're going to do is create another magic file, the not found one, which I guess is going to take precedence. So right here, not found tsx. Paste all of that. Here we go, pasting again. And now we get this nice UI. I love placeholder UI and like empty UI. And this is very cute. So errors, you render the error tsx, the closest error tsx. So the navbar had no errors, still renders nicely and is interactive. But if something errors out, you render this component, great. And if you manage to go to an invoice that doesn't exist, you get the not found component rendered there. Great. And they're talking about this here. Not found takes precedence over error. Sure. Which file in Next.js serves as a catch-all for unexpected errors in your out segments? Is error, it's error tsx. I think with the pages router it used to be 404 tsx. But in this case we're talking about error tsx. Completed. Awesome. All right, flying through. Accessibility, this is going to be fun. This is the point where I would be going with the Playwright browser testing to drive the accessibility of the application. Because if you use great selectors, great locators, then you also get an accessible app by default. But let's see what they want to do. Oh, they're using ESLint. Okay, that's something, I guess. Server side formal listen, sir. Use form state to handle form errors and display them to the user. What is accessibility anyway? So this starter didn't have the linter before. Guess intentionally because they wanted us to add it. That's good. Force us to write things. And if we go here to run lint, are we gonna? Oh, I need to configure ESLint. I think I am in the correct repository. So yeah, yes, let's configure it. Strict, why not? So they've configured ESLint somehow. We forgot to remove those files last time. Let's do a clean install, see what happens. Will everything break due to ESLint? That would be fun. All right, looks fine. I did forget to add a commit for when we finish this chapter. So they decided to, the ESLinter decided to use PNPM for this, but we're not using PNPM. And feature complete chapter 12 is what we did. Chapter 13 even. Okay, now we're gonna add ESLint to help with accessibility. I reload this window as well. So, run lint. It wants us to do it again. Doesn't seem to work. Thankfully, I do have another project off screen, which should have an ESLint config, which extends Next Core Web Vitals. Maybe that's what we want. ESLint and ESLint config next. Looks like that's correct. Would we need anything else? Let's look at this other project. No, those two are enough. Let's try lint now. No ESLint warnings or errors. Everything is smooth. I guess they must be using a different config, because on this one it would have caught that this image element should have a meaningful prop. Maybe I've added it actually. Invoices table. This one. Yeah. So I've preemptively added this because this was complaining even before. So yeah, they tried to teach us something, but that's a bit of a fail. We even used exactly the same line. Cool. All right, even when they're trying to set me up, I cannot have accessibility errors. I'm very proud of this. So here we go. They're talking about semantic HTML, which is why I really love using something like Playwright to drive the accessibility of my app. With Playwright, if you use good locators, you are ensuring you're using semantic HTML, which always helps. Labeling, focus outlines, like even if they look ugly, like just take care to make the focus outlines look nice instead of disabling them, which was the standard bad practice back in the day. And it's also saying, let's do some form validation. If If we try to submit an empty form, we get an error. So they're saying go here, create the invoice, fails. But it's because they haven't even added browser-side vanilla native browser validation. So create form here. The status is required. The correct one, maybe not. Let's look at all the input elements. So the numbers are required, the amount. The status, I imagine, is required, and choosing someone should also be required. But I guess all they want us to do is add this. So now if we try to do this, the browser with the personalized browser-based UI that will be localized as well in your preferred language will show up and block us. And this should also block us for this too, and for this. So doesn't let us do it. It says select a customer. Doesn't let us do it. It says input a price. And then also says select status. Great. And then it will actually work. But now they're saying, well, if something goes wrong on the backend, what can we do? We can use form state. Interesting. So we're going to be increasing complexity here. Hopefully we'll be getting some nice messages. I talked about how designers love designing select dropdowns that aren't the native dropdowns, and you should just use the native dropdowns as MVP and then move on to the other ones. The other thing that I hate is when designers want their custom form validation messages. That takes too long for a worse result. So I will always fight for using the vanilla browser-based form validation instead of introducing all this logic for your app that's not going to be as good as what you get by default. But here, maybe they have something. Maybe they have a plan. Let's see. So the use form state, you actually pass the action to use form state that you want to use with your form, and you also pass the initial state, which haven't told us what it is. And you also have it inside the component, but it can be outside the component. And then we pass the dispatch to the form action as the form action. So in other places I've seen this called like form action as well, but I guess now they're calling it dispatch. Fair enough. Get the state and then dispatch, sure. It doesn't like this. Right, because the initial state has a message and errors, but this create invoice method doesn't return neither a message nor errors. But we're gonna fix that. Sure. So let's go to our actions file and do exactly that. Don't want to error out like this on this one. Now the create invoice one. If there is no customer ID, we want to error out. So how do I actually do that? Z string. So here, and we can pass an object saying that if the type is invalid, we get a please select the customer message. The amount of the invoice needs to be greater than 0. Fair enough. And we want the status to be either one of those enums. Where do we pass it? Second argument of the Z enum is an object. Looks like. Sure. So maybe this is updated now. Z apparently has a save parse method that does not blindly throw, but has a success or error field. So it feels like we can do save parse. This will not blindly error out. Will it actually have the fields? Not sure. So it will have a data, looks like. So success, error, data. If no success or error, I guess. If no success. If there is success, then we should have data, so we can structure that and do whatever we were doing before. Keep going. And then we can return that object that the state was looking for. This error object. Ooh, it says this doesn't exist. Interesting. Is TypeScript incorrect, or is this guide incorrect? Success in data. Guess it's not always there. So maybe that's why you do need to do this juggling. So validated fields is this. If it has no success, then it's of the different type that has the error. That's what's happening. Some TypeScript magic here. So TypeScript figures out if it doesn't have a success field, it must have an error field. Or else, if it does have a success field, it also has a data field, which is going to have all of that. Cool. And it even knows that this is going to be a string, this is going to be a number, and this is going to be an enum, or either one of those strings. Cool. Love it. And now, for accessibility again, they want to show what type of error we had. Interesting. So back in my component, they want right here, after the user circle icon, to have a ternary to say where when the state has error, do I need to type this further? Maybe. Not sure. Maybe that's the React DOM problem that they were talking about before. Ah, create invoice has the previous state and then the form data. I see. So the moment we use this action with the use form state hook, it seems like the first argument becomes the state. And the state, I suppose we have to manually type this. Can we bring in it from somewhere? Guess not. I guess that's what to do. And with the previous state, I guess we won't be doing anything. Here, this is happier now. And it does know that the state does have errors in it. Potentially. But they also want us to use an ARIA label. They want us to add an ARIA described by, which I'm not like 100% sure this is the correct way to use this. This is only described by this if there is an error. If there is not an error, then this doesn't quite work. But I guess that's fine. We only use a state when there are errors, which I guess is fine. So now, if we try to create the invoice, we are going to be blocked once again by this. But let's say we had forgotten to add the required thingy here. No, that's good. We get the please select the customer thingy. Great. Did you realize this? Yeah, so we got to here. Customer ID did not exist, so we get this please select the customer field. We press now without selecting a customer, we do get this message. So we made this up. Nice. This is the thing we're rendering. This is a string. Cool. Will they ask us to do the same for everything else? Oh, they're saying add in ARIA labels. So we can make this required again, because that's what we want, but they want us to do the same thing for each possible error. So we should make this component, shouldn't we? Let's add it here real quick. Form error message tsx. I'm also gonna studly case this, because this is a React component, and I prefer this over the kebab case. And then if you check out the code, you'll know that I wrote this. I made it up. It's not the Next.js team. So the props of this, I guess, say it's an errors array. That's like an array of strings. Let's just say that. So type props. You know what I was doing there? Errors props. And then we can just check if we have errors, then we render them, but we may not have them. And I think that's what we want from this component. Let's try to use it here. Render it, and the errors should be, what should it be? This should be state errors, customer ID. And this is complaining because what did I do here? Form error message. Looks correct to me. What did I begin? Ah, need for curlies, of course. So now sometimes it returns void. Forgot to return this, return. All right, and now we can inline return. So it should all be good. It should all be good to go. Create form. Let's say this is not required. Enter an amount. Select the state. Press this. We see there as before. Great. We can re-add the required. So we'll never actually see this, but you never know. And do the same thing. Oh, what did I actually do there? Ah, yeah, and paste this for the invoice amount here. But the error here is gonna be amount. So instead of pasting all of this code, we should be good to go. So now if we select the customer, select the status, but not an amount, get this. But we'd never actually get this, we'd get the browser validation. But I do like this. This is nice. If the server has a different type of error other than you needed this field, like this amount should be positive, or something you can do with browser navigation, then you'd be good to go. Final one they've asked us to do is set the invoice status, which I guess is here. Let's see, all the way here, I guess. Status. So again, if we forgot to make this required, create the invoice, we get the errors here. Awesome. But of course, in reality, browser validation first. Browser validation first, browser validation first, and this still creates it. Cool, we need a loading spinner there. I don't know if we'll add it here. It's saying here, trying to link this. No warnings or errors. Interestingly enough, the example they had, they did say that this is described by customer error. Which I guess is this component we created, which they gave the ID customer error. Need that one. So actually the ID string, you need to pass this around. But I'm not sure if that's correct, so I'm not going to do it. So the ID for this one, I am going to leave as customer error. And I'm going to say that the ID for this one is amount error. And finally, the ID for this one is status error. And what they want us to do is say that this is described by the error and this is described by the other error, but I don't think that's correct, like, because this field is not described by those things until it has an error. So I'm not sure that's the way to go. Oh well. If you'd like to challenge yourself, do everything like that in the edit form component. We'll not be doing so yet. Let's add it to the bonus stuff because I think there are better things to show in here. So we're not going to do the optional stuff, including loading buttons. I thought we may be showing those in here. Let me know if you'd be excited to see loading spinners from some distance. I think that'd be cool. But it looks like... Oh no, they do have the edit form updated. So we will have to do it now. Because I am a completionist, I am a gainer after all. So edit form, thankfully we can reuse this component everywhere. But it does mean we'll need to be inspired by whatever we're doing here with the use form state. So edit form, use form state, plonk. It's going to be the update invoice, but which bind the ID. So this one, let's copy it over. And we're going to use the dispatch here. I'd rather call this action, form action or something. And the initial state would also have a message. And that should be kind of good to go from here, but now we need to go to the actions. And much like this, is it the same state, the update? Yeah, because they never know the ID, so I don't need to refactor it. Yeah, it's exactly the same, so let's just keep the state. So the update invoice is going to be taking the ID as the first parameter because we're binding this. It's going to be taking the previous state, which we're never going to use, I guess. And then we're going to do this safe parse crazy thing. In the update method. And this is going to be the validated fields. I guess it will never not have success because it's the wrong method. Now it's going to have it, but we also need, well, we need nothing because it seems like we've added the error messages in this object, so we're good to go. My watch has told me to stand, but I'm standing all this time. Been standing all along. The phone call was coming from inside the house. Oh my god, spooky for Halloween. Johnny was standing all along. So this should just work. And now all we need is to add our fun form error message component everywhere. So the select. This guy takes a form error message. The invoice amount takes a form error message, but it's an amount error. Amount. And the status takes a form error message, but it's the status. Was almost cool, not quite. So once again, edit invoice. If we delete this and we press, we get there. Indeed, that's kind of good because we forgot to add the required in these fields. We cannot unselect something or unselect a status, but again, if someone really wanted to mess with the HTML and make their life harder, then they could, I suppose. So invoice status, required. Amount is required. Select is also required. So now in reality, if we did make this like be undefined, then we get the browser validation. Did something blow up? We should be redirecting. It looks like the update takes, but there must be something that we messed up. There must be something we messed up. But what? Oh, we've put the redirect in the try-catch, which they told us not to do, like rookies. Oh well. All right, got it. All works. So this isn't a bonus thing. We just did it. We've improved accessibility. Amazing. Hope you're having fun. Let's commit everything. Do we have like any weird console log? I guess they have like tons. We have any weird error throwing? I guess they have a few. It's hard to see if we've committed anything crazy. Oh well. So watch out for this. It seems that the project they have doesn't have an ESLint, doesn't have ESLint configured. Other Next.js projects do have it, so you can copy it from there. Anything else? Ban just reformatted this for no reason. Whoops. Let's run a format. Just in case. A new feature completed chapter. Two more to go. Oh, authentication should be good. So accessibility done. Authentication and metadata. Looks like only 2 to go, and then we go to the bonus features. Previous chapter, you finished building the invoices route by adding form validation and improving accessibility. Well done to us. Tap ourselves in the back. In this chapter, we'll be adding authentication to our application. What people really want. What is authentication? What's authorization? Like the blah 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 blah. Ah, they have pending states here, so we may actually do them as part of this chapter. I wonder why they have it now. I knew they'd have authentication versus authorization, some definitions. This is something like in a phone interview, people may ask you as well. So look this up. Two-factor authentication. MFA, multi-factor authentication. Wow, which of the following best describes the difference between authentication and authorization? Another opportunity for me to be found out. Authentication determines what you can access. Authorization verifies your identity. B. Authentication and authorization both decide what parts of the application a user can access. Authentication verifies your identity. Authorization determines what you can access. There is no difference. Both terms mean the same. Developers just love splitting hairs. So, authentication, what it says higher up is about making sure the user is who they say they are. You're proving your identity with something you have, like a username and password, or with a third-party provider. If you have like a Google account, then through Google, you can prove that you are indeed the person with that Google account. Authorization is the next step. Once a user's identity is confirmed, authorization decides what parts of the application they are allowed to use. So it feels like authentication verifies your identity. Authorization determines what you can access. We got it here. So login route, finally, like this route, it's gonna work. Whoops, spoiler alert. What are we gonna do here? We're gonna use, well, we're gonna create a login route. Copy everything as always, but also reinforce our learnings. How do you create routes in Next.js? With the app directory, you go to source. You may not have source. I love using source. I think that's one of the things that Next.js had a huge opportunity to correct, but it does support the source directory, so just do it. Anyway, inside source app, we're gonna create a login directory inside it at page.tsx that's gonna magically make the /login route resolve. And let's resolve these parts correctly. And now, if we do get here, we finally get this nice UI for email and password authentication. Nice. So in the previous stream, when we were seeding the database, we had a problem with the seed script that we needed to use. We switched to using bun. The problem was with the bcrypt library that was creating a hash password to store in a database, never store passwords in plain text. Now I think they'll have us verify that the password we have now matches the one we have in the database. But we will be able to use bun locally, but not in deployment, because Vercel still only uses the Node or Edge runtimes, not the bun runtime. So we'll see. This may have us debugging for a little while. We'll see. So now they're telling us bring in Next.auth and bcrypt again. Interesting. What's this? No, we did try to install this. And beta version of Next.auth. Interesting. In any case, bring those two in. Next.auth is this, sponsored by Clerk, which is a very popular, up and coming, I'd say, getting more and more popular authentication solution. Clerk is framework agnostic. You can use it with SvelteKit or Astro or whatever else you want, but it seems like they're kind of helping Next.auth work with them as well. So now bcrypt we're bringing in, because we'll need it for the hashing, I guess. Secret key, we need to use OpenSSL. Do I have this on this Mac? Probably. All right, so I need to switch my screen around a little bit. We need to get our terminal. Maybe this terminal. And we need to also get this off screen for just a moment. Not that it's the end of the world if we leak these. but they want us to add an auth secret in our .env, and they want the auth secret to be whatever value we get here. Make sure to copy and paste it correctly. Fine. And now I can close this and bring it back so everyone can follow along. Again, not the end of the world if we leak any of these. Well, if you use it in a production app and you leak it, then you're in trouble, but I don't think I'll be in trouble here. And right, I guess that's it. And also we'll need to update all environment variables in the deployment project too. We'll do that later. Adding the pages option. Configuration options for Next.js. I haven't used Next.auth, or I've experimented with Clerk, but not really used it because I use Supabase for everything nowadays, for storage, the Postgres, the magic links, the authentication, authorization, all of it through RLS. So I'm not super familiar with this. We'll just need to trust the process. Apparently, root project auth config yes. So let's copy this. Make sure that it's the root of the project and export pages sign in. I guess you need to specify that the magic page for sign in is the /login and it redirects back there. And I guess they're bringing this in to type this object. But it needs more things. Providers? Not sure. Maybe that's why they didn't type it yet. We'll remember to do it later. Do they have providers here? Empty array, sure. So yeah, we can do that. Providers would be third-party providers like Google and GitHub if you want to do sign-in with Google or GitHub or anything else. Now, I guess with no providers, email is implied. Great. So there is a callback. I guess this adds magic middleware. Oh, they've added the satisfies here. That's the modern way to do typing with TypeScript. So we can do that. I was too hasty to say that we were not going to use it. So have this authorized method. It checks whether the user exists, if they're logged in. It's on dashboard. It depends, like every URL that is under dashboard is gonna be on the dashboard. So I guess then they're checking if they're logged in and on the dashboard, good, they're authorized. Else, it redirects users to the login page, which is this. Or they go to the dashboard. Interesting. All these ternaries are a bit weird, I'd say. So this is the new Air TypeScript syntax that's very similar. So what I'm used to doing is this. What modern TypeScript does is the satisfies, which I find it clunkier because when you're trying to make a method satisfy a type, then you need to add parentheses and stuff. The difference may be that this is a bit more lax when it comes to it has some fields it doesn't need, but I think essentially they're the same thing, just different syntax. I guess for actually typed languages or languages that were typed all along, that's what you'd usually do. Like it implements its interfaces, it satisfies contracts. I think it's just the terminology really but functionally, it should be almost the same as the other syntax. Shouldn't have any difference. Maybe the error messages are a bit different. So let's try to get to grips of what the ternaries mean here. So let's say if we're not on the dashboard, return true. But so they'd also return a redirect to the dashboard if we're logged in, which is kind of crazy, isn't it? If they're not on the dashboard, always return true. No, if they're not on the dashboard and they are logged in, redirect to the dashboard, which is a feature of some apps that I don't like. Vercel makes sense, like it does do this. So sometimes I just want to show the Next.js page. Yes, this works. Sometimes I want to show the Vercel page, but it redirects me to the dashboard, whether I want it or not. And I'm like, no, I want to see the marketing site. But they're doing the same trick as they're doing in this course. For example, since we're here, check it out. The Next.js 14 site, real user score 99. Awesome, we're killing it. So if I actually want to, for a video to show the Vercel site, I need to open an incognito window and go to vercel.com and then see what the news are or whatever they have here. Because else, since I am logged into Vercel, they do redirect me to the dashboard. I hope I've managed to explain what they're doing here. So if we are on the dashboard route and we are logged in, we're forced to be on the dashboard route. We can never see the marketing page again. We need to open an incognito window or a logout, which I don't think it's good UX. But I don't know, maybe they have the numbers and they say people actually want to go to the dashboard. So they're doing this. Not sure. Gonna respect their decision here. Anyway, if we are on the dashboard, we should be checking whether we are logged in, or else turn false and it's gonna redirect us to here. So we can just return is logged in here. And we kind of understand this. Like I would never do this. This is kind of crazy to me. But again, I'm sure they have more data on whether this is helpful or not. So if we manage to log in, we'll never be able to see this page ever again. Cool. Authorize callback, blah, blah, blah. Then we need to import this config we just wrote and export it as part of the next config, I guess. No, sorry, we need to create a new middleware file and say only run this if we're not in this directory and we're not trying to read an image or something. Sure, let's copy this. So this one should be a middleware that runs across the site. Middleware.ts. So we put it at the root of source app, root of the app directory. And here we need to find the auth config. So I guess we just made it, this can be anywhere, right? So I'll just collocate it. And then I like having the default export in the end. Default export is going to be the next auth result of .auth object. I guess that's a function that takes the request and the response of Next.js and makes sure to throw an error, return a redirect, or whatever else accordingly. This middleware would be matching everything under our site, but with this matcher, it does not match things like images, I suppose. Some things like precompiled directories, things in development, the API route as well. Interesting. My regex skills aren't amazing, but I do think this says not the API or in the next static directory or blah 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 and not an image. Okay. Does this have made it so it magically works? Middleware runs first, so if a non-logged in user tries to log in, tries to access a page they shouldn't be seeing, nothing else will ever run, which is less expensive and less likely to leak something. We talked about hashing the passwords. They're saying they did already hash the passwords in the seeding file. We'll need to use something similar, I suppose. We didn't use the bcrypt library because it wasn't working in that script. Maybe it will work now. I wonder, I'm not sure if bcrypt is available in the Edge runtime. We'll see. We will see. We'll debug this error if we come to it. So they're saying auth yes. Where are we going to use the auth yes? I'm not sure. Let's go step by step. Let's see. They're saying just create an auth and don't worry about it. It's created in the source directory, for example, not the app directory. Maybe on lib, but I'm not sure. We'll see. Auth yes. Create it. Do this. We'll put it in the app directory because it seems it's relative to where we have the auth config. Fair enough. Then it's saying add a credentials provider. We've talked about how we can have a variety of providers, including Google or GitHub, but apparently you don't get the vanilla email and password authentication or username and password authentication by default. You do actually need to add it as a provider. And then they'll use the same validation library we used for the forms. And the credentials provider now, instead of an empty object, actually has an authorized method, which doesn't return anything. So I guess we will be doing stuff afterwards. So interestingly enough, get user method here, the user they've typed for us. here, even though Next seems to also export one. Vercel Postgres. All right. Get user, we have it. And we want to say in the authorized method, if the parse credentials is a success, then it does some stuff, or else it returns null. So if the parse credentials have an error, then it returns null. We'll resolve the TypeScript error later once we're done with this method. Because here is the point where we'll be checking if the password does match. The user return null, or else return the user. Makes sense. Hope this library does work now. Unlike the last stream, I can hear my puppy waking up, which is not great news. And here we can return invalid credentials and null. And now authorized method is happy because we always return something. We either return the user or null. All right, do we want to log this? Probably not. Every time someone has a bad password match, forgets their password, we don't want a log clog in our server logs. Great. So now we need to update the login form. And since we're gonna be importing the stuff we wrote here, so no bcrypt types, let's try to add them. And hope for the best. So let's put this in the lib directory. Well, this is in the auth config. Let's put this in the auth config as well. And the middleware will be bringing this in from lib. That's fine. That's fine. Everything is fine. Now we need to go to our login form. My puppy has found a toy, which is great news. We may be left in peace until we're done. And the login form, we're gonna make it a client component. This thing, make it a client component with this directive. And then I'm gonna use form state again and form status, which we haven't used now. Haven't used before. Hello, Marina. My puppy is here. Let's see if playing with her a little bit will calm her down. Hello, how are you doing? Do you want to say hi to the stream? What do you want to say? Whoop. Thank you for the hug. I know you don't like hugs. Alright, we're back after this cuteness. Right, so this authenticate method, does it exist? App lib actions. That's not a real thing. I think they're going to do the classic where they're saying import this that you haven't wrote yet, and maybe right after we'll do it. Hey, Samarina. So I won't worry about it yet. I'm trying to scroll down. Oh no, where is it? Where is Authenticate? Here you go. Did I just miss this? I guess so. Whoops. So let's create this Authenticate action. They're saying put it in your huge actions file, which I disagree with. So where would I actually put it? I would put it here in the login route. That makes sense to me. Actions.ts. Her name is Summer. My puppy's name is Summer. She's 10 months young still. Labradoodle. She's a great girl. Thanks for asking. Alright, this I want to import from @lib auth authenticate method previous state. We've done this before, but I guess they're inlining the state type in here, and we're not really going to use it. And it's going to try to sign in, catch the error. If it's a credential sign in, then it returns this. I guess that's Next.js magic, and it needs to be like that. Or maybe we'll be adapting it later. So now we can bring in this action, pass it in here. Oh, and look, now they're calling this action. Well, before they were calling this dispatch. So some inconsistency there. I guess React calls it dispatch. Dispatch always makes me think of Redux, which is not good in 2023. Not what I want to be thinking. So string or undefined, indeed we did that. Wherever we say dispatch, for consistency's sake, I am gonna, oh, what happened there? Well, I'm gonna call this action. I am gonna call this action again. Middleware, that should work. Auth file, looks fine. Actions file, looks file, fine. And then in our login form, I'll try to restart the server in case that's just a webpack error. Looks like it was. And now, if we have a code back, I guess that's the error code in the state. Weird way to call it. I like having a standard schema for everything. So in the case of actions, in the other example, we called the state was an object that had a message and errors. And now the state is either undefined or a string, which is supposed to represent a code, which is a bit weird. I guess you do figure it out eventually, but I don't know. And the code is this. I guess the code now is credential sign-in. And the sign-in, we are re-exporting from Next.auth after configuring it with our stuff. So I guess we have to use this because it represents how Next.js throws their, so their error message will include this, and then we return credential sign-in. But we could return anything, I guess. If we do return credential sign-in, let's type this a bit better. do we ever return anything? No. So we only return this. And now we'll call this like code. So either credential sign-in code or undefined. And then in the UI, if we get this, we show the error. Not invalid credentials. Your wrong username and password. And in the login button, here, they're going to use the cool from status one to see if it's pending. If the form this button is in is pending, it's going to be disabled. Aria disabled, not really disabled, which is interesting. And I guess they're not going to use the pending from form status here, anywhere else. Okay, so we can remove it from here. Cool. So now, I guess let's check. I would have expected that on the right would be redirected out to the main app, because we do need to log in for this path, but I guess not. So login. Something's going on. What is it? What's the problem? The problem could be like a node issue. Let's try to run it again. Can't resolve FS. Could be bcrypt again. Let's see. So where are we using bcrypt? Here. Right, so it feels like if we don't use bcrypt, once again, things work. But if we do use bcrypt, then things don't work, which is unfortunate. What password do they want us to use? Although it shouldn't matter, because on everyone we should be logging in. And the password they want us to use is 123456. This was found in a database, this says. So headers expects to have request async storage, non-available. Interesting. One error at a time. So this is the error that failed. And I guess this thing is what the problem is. Let's log it out. Will we get this warning every time? Yes. Interesting. No error. Do we not make it here? Debugging time. Oof, hard crash. Hardest crash ever. So how is this possible? Like the moment we read the file, it crashes out spectacularly. We just promise resolve, what happens? I guess it doesn't crash, but we don't get a redirect either. So this sign-in, we're re-exporting from here. We're calling this next auth method and re-exporting the sign-in, but the sign-in functionality is failing. Which would be sad times if we had to stop here. Something must be wrong. I think this is so serial award example. Arian asks us, I've never pressed this before. I think it must be GitHub Copilot or GitHub Chat, one of those AI assistant helpers. It's kind of neat, isn't it? So where do you do the string includes? I think it's from the Copilot. Things from this one. But not sure. So I just think we make it here. Because the moment we stopped trying the sign-in method, then this kind of works. We do. And when we do the sign-in, what happens? Crazy things happen. Headers expects to have request async storage. Is the error? Let's double check here. Use client and use server. So the login form, use client, we have done that. And no other instance of use client, use server. I guess it's only for the logout, we haven't gotten to that part. So I don't think it's something we've done. So let's debug. Here, just 223 issues, not too bad. Nothing. Solution that worked. Great. RSC problems, there you go. Yeah, back in the day, I was using the debugger quite a lot in breakpoints, but nowadays it's mostly console logged debugging. If I do get stuck, I go for actual tests and errors. But on this one, I don't think it would help me that much. But I'm just not using with working with a debugger anymore. So is this the same workaround? Similar workaround. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I said. In other languages, I do use the debugger and the breakpoints quite often, but with JavaScript, I never got into the habit of doing it for whatever reason. I think the tooling is not quite there. But right, the sign-in method. Sign-in method, they say. They're bringing in something from server session and stuff. What does that mean? Here it's different. I also saw that we were explicitly bringing in Next.js beta 3 days ago, which supposedly was working with whatever we were having, but we also have the other problem with bcrypt not working anyway, so I'm not sure where to get there. Because what we want is to log in. And then what? How do we do the login stuff? I'm not sure. And also, this middleware, based on the auth config, should be redirecting us when we're trying to be on a dashboard route anyway, right? What is the dashboard stuff? In this config, right? Yeah, this is the studio display, so sorry if it looks small. All right, my question is, does this ever run? Which it should. Should be running on the server even. But it doesn't look like it runs. We have this auth config that doesn't seem to be running ever. We don't get this hello message. And did I misname the middleware? Let's have a look. This is saying to put the middleware in the root of our project. So maybe that's part of the problem. It doesn't look like it makes a difference. So for that other middleware, same level of space as an app or source directory. So here, nope, I lie. This is a source directory, put it there. Still doesn't do it. I thought that would make a difference. Did I miss yet again? All right, I hope to get locked out. Great, middleware in the right place. Awesome. We made it. We made it somewhere. We made it here, and we do get redirected to log in correctly because we're not logged in. Now, doesn't really matter what we do. We do have the problem of the credentials. So we have async request of sync storage non-available. We're getting this from the lib auth directory, which should be fine. It doesn't work. How else would we do sign in if not the next auth way? Should they say use server here or use client? What should I do? I guess the course doesn't tell us to do more use client and use server stuff. Both server actions work when called in server components. But it's a different method that they're calling. Let's check version of Next as well. There is a 0.1 upgrade. That's something. I think we may have gotten it anyway because I deleted the band log before. So because of the carry, it should have gotten the patch release. So beta 3 of Next.auth and 14.01. There is a chance. All right, log in. Yeah, that doesn't work. They are saying something about client components. What is a client component? The login form is a client component because they want us to like use form state and all of that. Let's see if it works if we don't use form state. Let's say that's not what we want, and we want to use authenticate dot bind null and no code. Undefined. Let's bind this code, which is no code. I just want to get rid of the first parameter, which is not used when you don't use that form state hook. Same thing happens again. But we are still in a client component. We don't need to be in a client component anymore. I lie, we do. But if we extract the button, then we won't need to be. So extract this, remove all these things, and bring in the login button, send file. But then this component should use client. This should be a server component, right? It may be confused, so I'm gonna try it again. Guess it wasn't. Did I forget the use servers here? Was that the problem? Oh dear. Let's see. All right, I think that did something. Like we're submitting and something is happening. And then sign in happens. Do we get extra cookies or something? I'll try to have a look at the big screen. So now I do my email address or whatever they want us to do. So a big difference because I didn't add this in our existing huge actions thingy. I think these actions, we start with a use server. I created a new actions file to collocate the login action with this, but I forgot to add use server. So that's a big thing that may have made a difference. Now we should be making it here and we should be running the sign-in method. And then I guess that's it. But what happens afterwards? I don't know. We should be redirected, I guess, to the dashboard after this. Trying to get the user with the email. They use this email, maybe not. Next mail. Let's see. This did something, but I'm not sure what it did. It wants to go back to login false. Okay. Authorizing. ... Try again. Surely this doesn't run on the client. It doesn't direct me back to login for some reason. I guess cookies aren't added. But why? How can this method not be running? I would have expected for the authorized log to appear. So I give it the username, I give it the password, then I go to login again, post request login, then I'm back to the login page without this actually running. We should be using this provider. And I guess these empty providers array gets overridden from this auth config. Where are we using the auth config? We are using it in the middleware. But should we be using it from there indeed? Or the other auth that does have the credentials? So we're bringing this in from auth config, but I'd imagine that's not what we want after all. We'd want to switch to auth.js. So where else are we messing with the middleware? Never again. I think this should be auth. I think incorrectly. So that one I don't quite get. We have this auth config file, which we didn't add the credentials provider here. Oh no, we did. Do we mess with auth config again? No, that's it. We don't mess with middleware again. But I think we should soon be using this config that has the correct credentials provider and stuff from here. Certainly. What's the middleware TS doing again? Re-exports this. Is that enough? And it's the default export as well. So let's look again. Export default auth from auth. Does that make a difference? It goes to the false login thing. I guess that's something. We still will not go to the dashboard page. Get the directed login. So we can go to login. If we're trying to go elsewhere, get the directed login. It's a weird hash parameter. And if we try to go somewhere else, we should get 404. Sure. So that looks like it's set up correctly, but the actual login stuff seems to stop here. And I'm not sure why. And we do get some error, clearly. We do make it here. We do go to the authorizing. Great. So it looks like that's a difference. It looks like that works, to be honest. But get user by email, get user select from users where email is this. Does that user actually exist? Maybe it doesn't. So let's see. Do we have this user? Yeah. We do get this user. It's all good. It's all well and good. However, there is a next redirector. So this thing, this credentials authorize method, when we do tell it to return the user, which we should be getting there because this is truthy, errors out. So that's the problem that we're left with. The final redirect. The final redirect lets us down. But why? We have the middleware here, which shouldn't make a difference. We're just exporting the default auth from the auth library we're creating, which is the thing that has a provider that has a credentials provider and all of that. The other problem we have is that we can't actually match the password, but we're just saying they're matching just to see what happens next. And we do make it here. We return the user. Should we not be returning the user? Is it time to look how this is supposed to be working? Do they have beta docs? Maybe not. Either an observer representing a user or value that is false, whatever. We do return the user and then it doesn't redirect. And then it doesn't redirect. Stripe, what does this do? Just some cookies, I guess. Let's look at the GitHub. There is one issue. 13th of July. They are doing a custom URL here, so it should be fine. Is this like kinda client side? Is that a difference? So this is for some weird custom UI. Do we have anything else here? You return unauthorized options. Don't know what else you'd want. Beta brands. No beta brands. Return the user should be fine, but the redirect doesn't seem to be working. This is kinda interesting. Maybe the redirect is not working because we're not re-exporting a method or a handler. Is there any other route we may need? We are re-exporting all of these for some reason, I'm sure. I guess the auth object we're not using anywhere else. We had to change it. To return and direct here. This looks correct. Let's have a look again. It's the email that we need to use, the next email thing. This we do make it to the authorized method, and auth is something. Is there an auth user? No, auth is null. What is next URL? Is it the URL? I guess it is. guess we must make it into the else statement where we're not logged in, and then it's us true. But yeah, nothing else matters here. Just make it back to this page. We can't see this page, but we should be getting redirected to like the dashboard. We should be logged in at this point. There should be a user in here, and then we get logged in. But there is none. And why? And it's because the redirect from this action doesn't work. Can only imagine. So this one's returns nothing, but we're doing the sign in from the auth library, from auth, and that one errors out. Can only imagine. Yeah, sign in error, next redirect errors out. Somehow, at the end of this method, we should be getting redirected, but we're not. What else are we doing different? We are not comparing the bcrypt, which is fine. Let's go back to using the client component here and see what happens. So our login form, let's say use client here. And use form state. We should be back to the previous problem we had, but don't really know what else to do. Kinda interesting. So we didn't hard crash. That's something. I was hoping that since it's a client component, maybe it would be like more of a client side redirect. And then it would just work. No such luck. The redirect straight up fails. So this thing straight up fails. What else can we do? We are re-exporting the sign-in from this method. The provider is credentials provider. We don't need an options. Authorization params, I don't really know. Do we need to give it something else? They have an example here, let's see. authorization params can be anything, but it's the redirect that's the problem. If we specify redirect, maybe that will do something. Ah, right, cool. So it is passing in the form data here, which should be email and password. So we know that all of this is fine. Have this form data, great, it has email and password, great. But the problem is, in the end we redirect and then it fails. But we can pass a third parameter and see if that changes anything. Better look at that. So the sign-in thing, provider options and authorization params. So what if I change the redirect to direct to passport? It is a record of string. Let's just ignore for now. See what this. All right. What happened? So it tried to go to API auth, which was maybe quite different. Let the command click again. But yeah, it's looking like I'll need to abort from this. Sign in. Provider options, authorization params. We're trying to pass this in. But it wasn't all too happy. It seems we make it to the redirect. It says the redirect doesn't work for some reason. We'll need to get back to it. So let's leave it at that. I need to log this, and we're gonna say compare password hashes. And say this. So it doesn't look like we're gonna make it through. Of course, that's not gonna work. We do get the redirect back to this page, but only after my dog is back playing with a ball, wants to play. So it doesn't look like we'll make it all the way through. So we get this error for some reason. We'll get to the bottom of it at some point. But for now, to keep things rolling, if auth enabled, That doesn't exist. Just return true and move on with your day, which means that we will be able to move to the dashboard. Oh, I guess not. Yeah, return to here. So if we try to go to the dashboard now, we can see it again, even though we're not authed. And we are gonna say that apply some things, but get stuck debugging. Chapter 15. Unfortunately, so we'll have to come back to this one. Adding metadata, last chapter. So this one we didn't quite do, but we'll go to adding metadata now and see. Hopefully it goes better. Metadata is crucial for SEO and shareability. I agree. How we can add metadata. This is very similar to how Next.js 13 ended up being. So we'll see. Metadata, why is it important? The theory in this course is very good, so make sure to read it. Amerina, what's up? You like metadata too? You like optimized websites? You like good SEO? Everything is good, right? Yeah. I think we can just about make it. So traditionally we'd handcraft all of this, but now with frameworks they can do a lot of stuff for us. And we can export a metadata object or a dynamic generate metadata function in layout.js or page.js, or we can even programmatically create images as well, or export images that we've created. So it looks like we have two images in the public directory, and if we move them in the app directory, they're gonna magically sit. Good job. So they say in the public directory we have a favicon, but that's not true. Is it? It doesn't look like it is. Yeah, that's not true. OpenGraph JPEG and favicon.icon, they're not there. So let's have a look. Our my puppy is getting rowdy. So the template starter is this. Let's see if something changed since we downloaded it ages ago. Public directory doesn't have the things we want. What's up? I think we'll need to bail. I think we'll need a part 3 of this because the puppy needs attention. Apologies for this, but it happens. We do have a few exciting stuff to get into. Analytics, the player navigation. Will you be even more excited if you authenticate? No hugs now. Sounds like an emergency to me. So, what we are going to be talking about next time, hopefully I'll get to the bottom of the authentication chapter, that's important, and then do the metadata, and then do the analytics, and then we can set up playwright and that sort of thing. Also, once we're done with this, I would love to go through this course, but implementing everything with SvelteKit. I think I'll be copy-pasting the same format in my own site with my own insights as well, but we'll see if that happens. And yeah, I guess this is gonna be it for today. hours and a bit. Our puppy was very understanding, no, but she's now starting to trying to catch my attention by eating the rest of the furniture. So I'll have to call it a stream. I hope you're gonna have a lovely, lovely weekend. I hope you enjoyed today. Let me know what you want to see me cover next. Most likely on Tuesday, we'll finish this course for real and then try to do it with SvelteKit next Friday. But always open for suggestions and we can plan for even further than that. So always let me know what you'd like to see from me. It's been a pleasure to code with you and I hope you're gonna have a lovely weekend.